And for the pledge, please. Attorney Salfinelli, would you please lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to call to order the February 21st, 2024 Lackawanna County Prison Board meeting. First item of business, the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. I need a motion, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The opportunity for the public to address the board on agenda items only.
Joan Hodawan, Scranton. With regard to the warden's report, the staffing update, something is nagging at my brain. 75 intermittent FMLA, and you have 108, possibly 184 full-time officers. Now, there's no breakdown of how much time is involved in that FMLA. I guess it could be 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, you know, it's intermittent.
Joan, how about we address that while she's giving her
Okay.
report?
I'll come back up
Is that
then.
fair?
That's fine.
Okay, we'll do it that way. Thank you. Anybody else on agenda items only? Okay. We have two motions to approve. 24-3010, motion to approve all current payables for the Community Correction Center and the prison. I'll need a motion.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, the next motion is 24-3013, motion to authorize payment from the prison welfare account of $9,010.80 to the Kahansky Company, PC, for the audit of the prison inmate and welfare accounts. Before I make a motion, I'm going to ask the Controller DeBilio to just elaborate more on this audit and what it entails. Controller?
Thank you, Sheriff. This motion is to authorize the payment to Kohansky and Company for the audit of our prison inmate and welfare/canteen accounts. The audit was completed by Kohansky and Company on January the 15th and covers the period through December 31st of 2022. We actually invited the auditor to be here today to answer any questions that the board might have, but she was not able to be here today and said that she will come next month if we'd like her to. So maybe we'll have her do that. That's up to the board. As you know, my office reviews and reports on the prison inmate and canteen account reconciliations and bank statements and have found no discrepancies, at least since I'm in office. The audit said that, in their opinion, the inmate account has areas of concern or note. However, as you may understand, the nature of a prison has many inmates coming in and going out on a daily basis, and tracking that account is always in flux and has constant turnover. The business office makes every attempt to get inmate money back into the hands of the inmate upon release. The audit mentions $134,000. Now, this audit has been sent to every board member, so they've had this to look at for over a week now. The audit mentions $134,000 of inmate account funds for released inmates who the business office has identified. They have this money, they know who it belongs to, but either the inmate has not come back to the prison for their money to claim it, or the business office has no known address for this money to get it back to the inmate. That's $134,000 mentioned in the audit. Today, that figure is $121,000. according to the business office. So that's $121,000 that's owed to inmates. We know who they are, but we don't have any address for them. And as you might, understand, sometimes people leave and they're homeless. Sometimes they get deported to other countries. Sometimes they have no known address to leave the prison. So it's always in flux, but the business office does their best to get that money back into the hands of the inmate. Besides that $121,000, the audit mentions $150,000, which is in the inmate account, that the business office does not know who this money belongs to. And that is since the implementation of the offender management system, which is the current system being used to track funds in the inmate account, that went into effect originally back in 2008. So to break down, my report that I'm going to give is going to identify the fact that the inmate account has $364,000 in it as of January 31st, a couple of weeks ago. But the $412,000 that the audit identifies in the inmate account, there's $150,000 of it that the business office has, and it's unidentified money. We're going to need to do something with that money. That's old money. That money can potentially go back into the general fund to pay county bills. It can go into the canteen account, which is also called the welfare account, which is for the benefit, education, and welfare of inmates, which is probably more likely a good home for it. It cannot be escheated to the state because the business office doesn't know who it belongs to. So there's no way to escheat it back to who it belongs to. And then there's the $121,000 that I just talked about that is identified money, but with no known address, and money that inmates have not come back to the prison to claim. They may end up back in the prison someday, we hope not, but if they do, and they have money there, they'll have access to it. So that money we should probably hang on to, at least for now, because people may come back. They may come back to claim it. We probably shouldn't do anything with that money, but that's up to the board on what we may want to do with the $121,000. $60,000 of the $364,000 in the inmate account is money that is owned by current inmates. We know who they are, and they are at the facility. They're in the prison, okay? So that money's identified. The remaining $32,000, approximately $32,000, is money that's owed to vendors for inmates purchasing items at the commissary or for other various expenses. So that's the breakdown of the audit. I could take any questions that members of the board may have. My deputy is here, Reggie Mariani. I may ask Reggie if he can come up to the podium in case he may be able to answer any questions that board members may have. Reggie,
Yes,
if you
Reggie,
can go
would you
up.
please come up?
So that's where the audit stands. We don't have the auditor here, but she may be here next month, okay? And in the meantime, Reggie or I can answer any questions that you may have over the things I just covered about the audit.
Okay,
anyone-
board members, if there's any questions.
Yeah, I have a question, Reggie. If you can answer, and if not, we'll reserve it for the auditor when she's here. But do we know how long the $121,000 has been sitting there? And specifically, has it been in excess of 7 years?
Yes. Some of it has, because we ran the report based on the inception of OMS in 2008 to present. So it could have inmates who originally was there in 2008.
And do we know a breakdown of how much money was there beyond that 7-year window?
No, no, we didn't do any analysis. But that figure is in a constant state of flux. Like, when they did the audit, it was 134,000. So since the audit, we must have paid some of those inmates, about 13,000 throughout, between that point and today's date.
Could you tell us the importance of that 7-year window, but you specified 7 years? Why is that important?
I think I'm the one who specified it, and I could be incorrect, but there is a period of time where, with unclaimed money, you're supposed to turn it over to the state, the cheat language. So any of that money that would have been beyond that window should have been turned over to the estate, and I would recommend we get a breakdown of that money and turn that over to the state Treasury Department. They then have a period of time, and again, I don't profess to be an expert on what their rules are, but they have a period of time where people can then make claims for unclaimed property and get that money to the rightful owners. And after the expiration of a certain period of time, then that money becomes money of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But our obligation would be to turn it to the state.
I agree with that, District Attorney Mark. However, that 150,000, the business office
121.
doesn't know.
I'm talking about the 121.
Oh, the
sorry.
121, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no, we have to notify the state if we do have any escheated funds that were not escheated according to their regulations. So we'll have to send a letter to the state telling them that we do have funds. So this way, we won't be penalized when we do send it to the state.
Reggie, do you know if that is solely released inmate funds, or when they get transferred to state prison on a sentence, does that automatically go to the state, or could that be included as well?
For the released inmates?
So the 121,000,
Right.
says released inmates.
Yes.
Do we know that that does not include state prisoners if they were
Yeah, those were just the prisoners that were housed in the Lackawanna County facility.
people transferred to state or held in sentence?
Yeah, right. Now, if they come back from the state to us, they still have their account out there, they can tap their account.
So I think we should get a good breakdown of the money before we decide what we're gonna do with it. I think that would be the best
Yeah,
course
and
of
I
action.
think we should make it more of an effort maybe to try to track down some of these people before we do that. I don't know how intense that search is.
And for next month, I can get a further breakdown, as Mark mentioned.
Yes, please do.
On how much of that 121,000 is over 7 years and how much is under 7 years.
That would be great.
Yep.
But I think
The
the,
auditor could be here next month.
but I think the determination has to be made on the 150,000, what you'd like to do with that.
Yes, and perhaps next month we can talk about that 150,000.
I think that's the
Do
best course
do
of
we at
action.
least know, Reggie, if that is money that was originated in the canteen fund, the 150?
No, that's strictly the inmate account, nothing to do with the canteen account.
I'm sorry, poorly worded. It's at least inmate, it's at least inmate money.
Yes,
Right.
you're correct, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
Will you be able to have a breakdown for us for the next board meeting?
We'll have to work with the business office and see what type of printout that comes off, and we'll have to work around whatever printout we can get from OMS.
I think the board would agree. I think we should bring in a representative from Kahansky, in case there's any questions for the board or the public.
Absolutely, yes.
Tracy, could you please put that on the agenda for next month? A representative for Kahansky, PC? Thank you.
Yep, we'll invite her.
Any other questions from the board for Mr. Mariani? Thank you, Reggie.
And just for correction, I said 7 years. I'm just Googling it now. It does indicate annually unclaimed property should be turned to the state. So I think the 7-year rule is when it's in the state and not claimed. So that, don't quote me on that 7-year rule as being the window of time. But we need to define that and then comply with the Pennsylvania law to turn over any unclaimed money annually from that fund.
Yes, that sounds good.
Yeah, there's a 3-year rule somewhere too, that we'll check the rules and determine what the amount that we're looking at.
Thank you.
So we can vote on paying the bill.
Right. Is that all you have for that, for the audit report, Mr. DeBillio?
That's all I have, Sheriff.
Okay. Okay, after hearing all of the report from Mr. DeBillio, I'm going to need a motion to authorize the payment from the prison welfare account in the amount of $9,010.80 to Kahansky Company, PC, for the audit of the prison inmate and welfare accounts.
I'll
Is there
make
a
that.
motion on the table?
I'll make that motion to pay the bill.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Mr. DeBillio, we'll stick with you. The controller's report is next.
Thank you, Sheriff. Controller's report of the prison inmate and canteen accounts as of January 2024. The Controller's Office reviewed the prison inmate and canteen account reconciliations, which were prepared by the Prison Business Office for the month of December 2023, and found no discrepancies between the reconciliations and the bank statements. The balance in the inmate account was $364,317.10 as of January 31st of 2024. The balance in the canteen checking account was $375,700.36 as of January 31st of 2024. And in addition, as of January 31st, the canteen account also included a balance in the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust investment accounts of $900,556.47, which earns approximately $3,767.92 per month, which will mature in July of 2024. And during the month of January of 24, $89,262.28 was paid from the canteen account for the benefit, welfare, and education of county inmates, and an itemized detail of those expenses are attached to my account. I would like to make mention here on the question, if I may,
Yes.
Sheriff, that knowing that the canteen account has $900,000 invested in it, and $375,000 that's in the checking account, and this account grows by approximately $10,000 per month. I took it upon myself to look into new ways, other ways that we could possibly, this board could possibly use canteen funds for the benefit, welfare, and education of our Lackawanna County inmates. I and members of my staff met with Deputy Warden Norzell and members of the Prison Business Office at the prison just yesterday, and to brainstorm ideas for that money. My office took particular notice of Lancaster County that has a policy in place for many additional approved expenditures for canteen account funds, such as exercise equipment, gardening, transportation costs upon release for inmates, providing indigent inmates with some commissary items that they may not be able to afford on their own. Another policy that Lancaster County happens to have is that they maintain $500,000 of canteen funds in the canteen account at all times, and all monies over that figure goes towards giving the taxpayers a break and putting that excess funds into upkeep of the prison, for example. That may be something that our board may want to ponder. That policy would help both the inmates and the taxpayers. Some counties, by the way, put virtually all of their excess canteen funds into the general fund to pay any type of various expenses that the county has, not only prison-type expenses. Personally, I wouldn't be in favor of that. but would be more personally in favor of potentially putting the money into the prison itself to help the taxpayers out. But Deputy Warden Orzel is here, and could you take the podium by chance? So we talked about some items that are potential expenses that can be paid by the canteen account, Deputy Warden.
We did. We talked briefly, not briefly, but we talked about, we revisited the idea of the electronic books. We talked about exercise equipment for the inmates. That's something I was going to bring up today. I don't remember what else we talked about. I'm sorry.
We talked about electronic books
Yeah, the e-books.
for the tablets that all inmates have. What was that?
Oh,
The
we talked
GED,
about,
reinstating the GED program?
right,
Which we had in effect before COVID.
right.
And once COVID hit, we did away with that because we didn't have any, in-person classes.
I am currently working on something for the commissioners to show everything that we've done prior to COVID regarding programming for the inmates versus what's happening now. So there will definitely be some opportunities that we can look at, especially GED. And the one thing that we talked about was bringing in speakers to come in and speak to the inmates periodically, somebody that we could pay, that's like a motivational speaker or something. I don't remember what else we mentioned, to be quite honest. I just remember the exercise equipment, the e-books. We were talking about food a little bit, but I think you kind of mentioned with the indigent inmates, maybe we can do something
Yeah, Lancaster
monthly.
County, for example,
Yeah.
provides some indigent
Right.
inmates with opportunities to purchase commissary items
Right.
at the expense of the canteen account.
I don't know if I'm missing anything else.
But we do have a lot of money in the canteen account, and it's for the benefit, education, and welfare of the inmates. And we have $900,000 invested, earning money. We have $375,000 in the checking account. And we already spend quite a bit of money on inmates. For example, cable TV, high-speed internet, fresh fruit favorite program, law library tablets, law library materials, haircuts for 375 inmates. We purchased inmate account checks, newspaper subscriptions, purchased card games, work boots, orange clogs, laundry bags, green trousers and shirts, billing for total body scanner, purchased brown bath towels, postage meter, lease charges, and supplies for prison haircuts. But we're always looking for different ways to spend money on inmates, and we'll continue to do that. Thank you.
Controller, any other counties that you know implement this idea other than Lancaster?
I believe there's many counties. I know, Reggie, you've spoken to a few of them. Can you come up, please? That's okay. But every county has a different way of operating the canteen funds, and that you're aware of, Reggie.
Just that you're aware of, that's all.
I would have to go back to my notes, and I wouldn't put another county on the spot.
That's okay.
I have information on Lancaster that I can make copies of and leave with everyone. And this is a good policy to go by, potentially, for us.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Do it next time.
Okay.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Controller DeBillio? Yes? Well, this is for the prison board, ma'am. You can hold that off until, for the public part.
But otherwise, that concludes my report.
The only thing I'll say, and this is just my personal opinion, I don't think the money that's in these accounts should be transferred to the general fund. I don't think that's a good idea. That's just me personally. I don't think that's a good idea.
I agree.
Having said that, anything else? A motion to accept Controller DeBillio's report.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Controller. Next up, 24-3012, Community Correction Center Report. Mr. McConaughey.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a house arrest report for the month of January. Adult house arrest had 170 participants, juvenile had 24. Programs revenues, obviously the month and year-to-date, they're the same. House arrest had $46,887.55. Juvenile had $5,830 for a total of $52,717.55. Programs expenses is $118,998.75. Programs completions, there were 38. Violations, there were 13. Total outstanding warrants, your papers say 4, it's 3. 1 was just captured. Budget report overall. Overtime is at 6%, expenses at 11%, and revenues at 8%. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. McConaughey? Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day.
Motion to accept the Community Corrections Center report.
Motion.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Warren's report. Warren Orzel.
Good afternoon, everyone. The average daily population for January was 761 inmates. 576 were county inmates. We averaged 660 adult males, 7 juvenile males, and 93 adult females. The average daily population of U.S. Marshals detainees was 185. The staffing update, we currently have 182 full-time. This is for January, though. 7 were out on workers' comp. 1 was on continuous FMLA, and like we mentioned earlier, 75 on intermittent FMLA. At this time, we had 2 full-time vacancies, which I'll discuss later, that we have more now, which makes 184 full-time officers. The budget as of January 31st, revenue was at 9% and expenses were at 11%. There were 3 extraordinary occurrences in the month of January. 2 of them were with the same individual. January 4th and January 5th, an inmate wrapped a sheet around her neck. A code blue was called via radio. They escorted the inmate to the medical department, which, when she was assessed by medical staff and put into a 15-minute suicide watch. She became combative and refused all directives. CIT de-escalation techniques were utilized with negative results. The inmate was secured in the emergency restraint chair to ensure safety. On January 26th, after a physical altercation with another inmate, an individual was being escorted to the restricting housing unit. While en route, he made threats to staff stating, "You guys wonder why your boy Gil Martin got shot? This isn't going to end," and continued to threaten the lives of staff when he gets outside. The inmate became progressively less compliant with the escort staff. Became progressively less compliant with the escort and actively resisted several direct orders given to remain compliant and calm down. He tried to actively break free several times and attempt to kick an officer. Due to the nonstop behavior, he was placed in the emergency restraint chair to calm down. De-escalation techniques were used to ensure the safety of everyone. They had to use the emergency restraint chair. And once secured, he was evaluated by the medical department. There were 2 pre-investigations completed in the month of January. They both fell in the category of staff on inmate sexual harassment, and both were unfounded. All completed investigations have been forwarded to the DA's office for further action if deemed appropriate. I have 1 request to use canteen funds for the purchase of exercise equipment for the inmates, outdoor equipment, the pull-up bar. They're called pull-up and dip station. We want to buy 2 of them for the outside yards, and it totals $5,768. I have a quote here if anybody wants it.
Warden, what did you say it was? Because it says a quote is attached, and I don't have
I
it.
know, and I didn't realize I didn't attach it. So I have it here. I can give to you guys.
That's fine. How
Okay.
much?
$5,768.
$5,768?
Yeah, each piece of equipment, we want to buy 2. Each cost $2,884 each, with a total of $5,768. Personnel, we have, as I mentioned at the last prison board meeting, a new cadet class started on January 31st, consisting of 4 correctional officers. The class was originally intended for 6, but 2 of them ended up not fulfilling the requirements for the position, so they were not passed through the process. They graduate on March 8th, so we usually invite the prison board to attend graduation if anybody's interested. One note that I didn't add here, we did have 1 termination in the month of January. We had an individual that was not coming to work consistently. We tried to work with them several times to have meetings with the prison and human resources, to which he didn't follow through with. So after multiple multiple occurrences of insubordination and refusing orders, he was terminated. We have 2 vacancies. One is the Deputy Warden of Security due to retirement, and we also have a vacancy for a lieutenant. Do you want me to mention my recommendations?
Not yet.
Okay. So that concludes my report.
Okay, let's do it in 3 parts, if that's okay.
Okay.
Let's go to, make a motion to accept Warden Rozel's warden report first. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now the second request, or the first request you made was to purchase the exercise equipment for inmates, which is certainly a benefit to their health and welfare.
Through Bob Barker, who's an approved vendor. Bob Barker Company.
And if this is voted on, this would be taken out of the canteen fund.
Yes.
$5,768. I'll have copies made of it if you want to take a look at it.
Yeah. I apologize. I can email it as well to everybody.
It's okay.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second on the motion to purchase this equipment for the benefit and health of the inmates?
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, the third. You're looking for a deputy warden of security due to retirement.
Right.
Kate Rominsky?
Well, that's for the lieutenant position.
That's for the lieutenant.
Right.
Okay, I'm
So right
sorry.
now-
Jason Toludo.
Right. Jason Toledo is currently deputy warden of treatment. So I was going to recommend that it's just a lateral move, just change of title, basically, become the deputy warden of security, which would leave the deputy warden of treatment position vacant.
Okay, and that's your recommendation
That
for
is
us?
my recommendation. He worked in our security for over almost 20 years. He was a lieutenant, and, so I think he'd be more than qualified to act as the deputy warden of security.
Any questions for Deputy Rozelle, or Warden Rozelle about that?
What's your plan for treatment?
We will probably post internally and externally to seek applicants for the position.
When do you think that'll be posted?
I spoke with Joanne from HR last week. Actually, I'm going to be meeting with her this afternoon. We have a meeting. So probably very soon.
And is the warden of security vacant currently?
Yes, it was held by former Deputy Warden David Piga. He retired.
And when did he retire?
That was January 15th, maybe.
Okay. I hate to see the gap in either, and I have to believe we knew someone was retiring, and possibly we could have filled or complied with both positions in a more timely manner than
Right.
starting this process now, where we made progress with the treatment, and I think he's done a wonderful job there. I hate to lose him, to be honest with you. That's my only dilemma.
Well, currently, he and I are sharing duties to try to fulfill all areas. Prior to Warden Betty's leave of absence, we were making plans on how we would move forward when Deputy Warden Piga retired, but then things kind of changed course when he went out on leave. Because essentially then there would be me and Deputy Warden Saludo.
But we're going to fill this treatment position
Yes.
as soon as possible, correct?
Yes, yes.
Any other questions
And
regarding
I would
this?
assure that there won't be any decline in treatment services or anything. We'll still maintain everything that's happening. If not, we'll try to do more. Just try to improve as we go along.
Any other questions for Warden Rozell regarding the appointment of Deputy Warden of Security? Okay, I'll need a motion to approve Jason Toludo promoted to Deputy Warden of Security.
I'll second it. He's a good candidate.
Yes, he is. Is there a second? I didn't hear that. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, your second request is to fill a lieutenant position due to
Yes.
retirement.
Our vacant lieutenant position, we had only a few applicants, one outstanding one that was more than qualified. She is a current lieutenant at the Luzerne County Correctional Facility, Kate Remiski. She's been a lieutenant down there for the last 5 years, and prior to that, she was their PREA coordinator. So she's extensive corrections background. We interviewed her, Deputy Warden Toledo and I interviewed her, gave her a tour of the facility, and we just think that she'll be a remarkable fit. The other candidates didn't have any corrections experience, so it was an easy choice for us.
Any questions for the warden regarding the lieutenant promotion? Okay. I'll need a motion to appoint Kate Rominski as the new lieutenant at the prison. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you,
All right,
Warden.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Were you going to entertain the questions from, with the warden? I thought you wanted to wait until the warden was there to entertain some questions. From the initial questions.
Yeah, we'll take them at the end.
Okay, okay.
Okay, this is the opportunity for the public to address the board.
Joan Hodawan, Scranton. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Kohansky's audit was the first independent audit of the inmate and welfare accounts that we've ever had?
Joan, could you go up, like, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I said,
Thank
correct
you.
me if I'm wrong, but the Kohansky audit was the first audit of the inmate and welfare accounts at the prison that we've ever had. Is that
To my
correct?
knowledge.
Okay, well, I congratulate you. That was $9,000 well spent. I read through the report, it's only 7 pages, and it's in 2 parts. One part is the actual audit, in which Kohansky said all the statements are fairly presented in all material respects, no problems. The second part was their review of internal controls, and that's where these issues came up. The most important internal control that an organization has is the independent audit. Somebody with a fresh set of eyes comes in and looks at your operation, offers recommendations, suggestions, okay? There were no problems in the actual audit, but there may be better ways of doing things. One thing I would recommend to Mr. DeBilio, that as you look into this matter, maybe the end product will be a policy of how you deal with these accounts when inmates are released from the prison, so you can track them in some fashion, set a time limit on them for, coming back for their money, and what to do if that time limit is exceeded, This way, you get a firm grip as much as possible on these monies. Remember, this may not be tax dollar revenue, but it is inmate money, and you have the same fiduciary responsibility to the inmates and their families. So I congratulate Mr. DeBilio, who was the one who asked for this audit, And I hope this will be done every year in addition to the other standard county audit. Because when you've got accounts that are approaching 7 figures, you need to have someone independently looking at them, and that keeps you from having a cloud over your head. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is why a representative from Kohansky will be here next board meeting to address any concerns or questions you may have. Thank you, Joan.
Thanks, Joan, and they are good ideas. And I want to acknowledge you because you're the one who brought up the audit idea originally, and I picked up on it. So thank you for the idea.
Anyone else? Next, please.
Denise Brown Troop. I applaud you for your ideas on how to spend that money, but if you could just remind the public where that money comes from, I would appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
Could you just?
We will break it down. Is that what you're asking?
No, I would like the public to know where that $1.2 million originated from. Like, that's not taxpayer money. Where did it come from?
The 1.2 million is canteen money, and it comes from commissions that the prison earns from purchases by inmates from the commissary,
Is that also telephone
and things
profit?
like clothing that they can buy on their own using their own money, some snacks, fruit, things like that.
And so recently, the canteen account prices, I believe, just recently went up.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
I don't know if I understand that the commissary prices just recently were increased. Is that true?
Warren, you
Not
aware of
familiar
that, if
with
the
that.
commissary prices increased? Yes, they did. They did? Okay.
Do we know by what percentage? Look, we're sitting
I'm
on
not sure.
$1.2 million of money that citizens paid for their loved ones to be in prison, so I'm kind of,
There's no flat rate of the increase. It was just contractually after the 2 years, the first 2 years, that Oasis was allowed to increase prices. And I did review all of the prices, and there wasn't a substantial increase. There was one drastic price change in a toothpaste that we got removed. But there was like just a general price increase. There wasn't I don't think it was based on a percentage. It was individual.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Newswanger. I'm CEO at Jubilee Ministries. 2.5 years ago, I was here presenting to this board about Jubilee's willingness to provide chaplaincy, Christian Protestant chaplaincy to the prison here. And we have been doing that for the last 2+ years, providing three different chaplains that are serving within the prison. 2 of them are here, and I thank you for that opportunity that we have to serve there. And we're doing that at no cost to the county. We're not receiving any funds for that. It's our purpose as a ministry to provide chaplains, and we do that throughout the state in many different facilities. Today, I'd like to tell you about another opportunity for the county, and particularly for inmates being released. We also operate what we call an aftercare facility, so reentry services that would be available to inmates being released. And just real brief, it's a long-term residential program. We're really looking for people who have a strong desire to change their life and are willing to go to a Christian program to do that. And again, that's no charge to the county. We offer that completely, no funds from the county. But again, yeah, long-term, we're not a halfway house. We're not just a place for someone to go and get housing or anything like that. It's an extensive program, and I don't want to use all my time, but if you have questions about that, I can go into what that looks like. But we do this for several counties within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And so oftentimes it works as a home plan. We can be put down as a home plan option for people being released. We have done a little bit in the area of bail supervision as well, that someone can come to us. The only thing that we would say, we have a pretty extensive interview application process that we review. Again, we're trying to determine who really wants to change their life, not just who wants to get out and go somewhere else. So we do have an extensive review, and we want the ability to deny if we deem that they're not ready for something like that. And so we work with probation departments, again, across the state. But just wanted to offer this as an introduction to what would be available. We are actually coming up tomorrow. Again, we have a meeting with the probation department, and we'll be presenting this in more detail. But wanted you as a board to be aware of it. We have been participating with the county just a little bit. We've actually had, I think, 4 individuals come. 3 are with us right now. 1 has actually completed our program, went through about 8 months in our program, completed well, is currently on house arrest. So any questions, or I can be done.
Warden, you'll be discussing this idea also with the gentleman?
Could you coordinate somebody, Warden? Absolutely. To discuss this matter with, and report back to us, please?
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good afternoon, Maggie Craig, Scranton. I just have some other clarifying questions about the canteen fund to follow up with what Denise was asking about. So correct me if I'm wrong, but after 4 hours of tablet usage, people start getting charged, right? Does any of that money go into the canteen fund?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I can find out, though.
Okay. And then another question, are there
The
any?
answer is no on that
No,
one. Yeah.
it's not. Okay. And like phone calls to loved ones, is that going to the canteen fund? No. Okay. Just one other question. Are there any physical books allowed in the prison right now? Paperback books?
We're not accepting donations of books, but inmates are still allowed to have books sent to them as long as it comes directly from the publisher.
Okay. Because I just want to be aware of a scenario where canteen funds get used to pay for ebooks that then people have to pay to access after 4 hours. If there's a 4-hour free time limit for tablets, that's just something I want to be aware of, that people should have access to books without having to pay for them, especially if they're already being paid for by the canteen fund. Okay.
And that time frame can always be adjusted. I can request more if we deem necessary. We can request more time to be added for free time.
Yeah, I think especially like looking at reading and access to education, maybe that's something we can revisit, more free time on tablets. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Bev DeBarro, Scranton. My topic is voting. Last year at this time, at this exact meeting, the February meeting, some of you will remember, I brought up for the 8th year that we didn't have voting in the prison. And last year, we had the program. Judge Gibbons said, yeah, we're doing it. So we did, and that was in February. The primaries were in May that year. This year, our primaries are April 23rd. So we're already losing time from registering people to vote, because registrations for this primary have to be in there by April 8th, which is 15 days before the election. So that only gives us, if we do next week, which is what we did last year, In February, we had that one whole last week in February, we went around and registered. And then in the second and fourth week in March, and then we have to squeeze in the first week in April to meet that April 8th deadline, just for registration. That is, I haven't heard, including today's report, I haven't heard that anybody else is doing voter registration this year. Does that mean that I'm supposed to continue with that?
Bev, did you have any communication with the Director of Elections? Because we don't know who would be qualified to vote and who would be disqualified from voting.
Trust me, we did all that. Last year, we contacted 174 people, resulted in many registrations, many mail-in ballot applications, many mail-in ballots from primary to the general election. Yeah, we know who's qualified. And it wouldn't be, well, anyway, I don't want to go further than that.
But I believe she would be the one that you'd have to go through.
Last year, we didn't. Judge Gibbons just said, do it. We went in the jail. We met with Warden Betty. I did. So that was like a Wednesday meeting. That next Monday was President's Day, but the next Tuesday, I went to, Colleen was there at the meeting, the warden said, just do it. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. So I did, and we had a whole procedure. It was a big learning experience, okay, so.
Do you have any suggestions, Attorney Solfanelli, regarding that? That's beyond our scope.
Maybe you can have a meeting with the warden and share the procedures that you developed and give a head start, and then we can figure out how to make this happen quickly.
I'm saying time is of the essence. We're already late.
Well, rather than somebody else starting from scratch, why don't you get together and...
That's why I think, since I haven't heard otherwise, I'm volunteering, and other volunteers that we were previously book volunteers, but we did the voting registration, and with the cooperation of the jail, we had, part of the time we had Deputy Warden Toludo at the time, but we'll have to have another contact person.
Bev, I don't think anybody here is against facilitating this
Right.
going forward.
Oh,
But we just
right.
want to make sure we're following the correct.
Anybody from registering or voting, inmates can, if they're interested in receiving a absentee ballot or they're not registered, they know that they can ask for it. They have the ability to request it. We can get it for them. And honestly, because you did it last year, I assumed you were doing it again this year. I just thought you were coming back to do it. So.
Okay, yeah, when I didn't hear otherwise, that's what I thought also.
Does that help, I hope?
I think so,
Yeah.
because we don't ever, in defense of the warden, he didn't necessarily say he doesn't want anything to do with it. He didn't want to take the stance because it is a political type
Yeah.
situation, he didn't want to be directly involved, so that's why it's best for us to have a volunteer involved. Not unbiased, but just somebody non-affiliated, just a volunteer. So, but I think our population is pretty aware of their ability to do it if requested. So it's not like they're being inhibited in any way, or they ask for information and we don't get it. So I think they're pretty well educated on it, but I'm certainly open for Bev to go back in and do what she needs to do.
And of course, there's always new turnover, so the new people that have come in these several months aren't aware of the program. A lot of the guards, the COs, when we went around, they weren't aware that inmates were allowed to vote. It was a whole learning experience in there. But we did good. We learned some things. Probably will be requesting a couple changes to make it easier, but we're pressed for time for this primary thing.
Okay.
Last year, I had asked Michael Jenkins from the University of Scranton, would his criminal justice students be interested in helping?
If you coordinate, Beth, or Bev, with the warden, and have Beth Hopkins involved, I think you'll be able to achieve your goal. There's nobody here, I think I could speak for the board, nobody is against that.
Okay. Against what?
So you have a green light, Bev.
Okay.
You have a green light.
So, okay. And I'll need one person to coordinate, because I always say,
Okay,
we're coming in at this certain time, and so I'll need that person.
okay, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, something else. I was going to do this next month, but the golden opportunity. I'm suggesting for the yards, what is called the yards in the prison are square or triangular concrete slabs. That's where the outdoor recreation takes place. So the exercise equipment, perfect. But I was going to recommend also benches, park benches made from recycled plastic, never need painted, very heavy. Because, say, in the summer or spring, when the women want to go outside for rec, all that's there is this cement slab. And for them to sit on that, we need benches
We'll
in
revisit
there.
that. We'll revisit that.
All right. I was thinking that next month, when the meeting is at the jail, we could all just go down and look at the new benches.
I think the women actually like to lay in they like to lay in the sun, so.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Bev.
you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Members, other business? Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, everyone.